Hello and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well and welcome to another vlog. Today we're gonna read a little bit of a different genre than we typically read. Typically on this channel I read romance and romantasy, a little bit of fantasy, but mostly romantasy. The books that I generally like to read have to have like a main plot of romance because that's what keeps me interested. That's what's fun for me to read. However, I have been wanting to get into a little bit more of like literary fiction, general fiction, because there's a lot of books out there that sound really interesting to me and I just kind of want to branch out a little bit. I want to try something new. So for this video, I thought we would read literary fiction or general fiction. I'm not really sure what the difference is between literary fiction and general fiction or like contemporary fiction. Contemporary fiction has to be set in the current, like present day essentially. And with literary fiction, I thought it would be more like focused on prose and just like more lyrical writing and things like that. But when I searched this up, it's basically telling me that literary fiction and general fiction differ primarily in their purpose and focus. And literary fiction aims to explore complex themes, characters, and the human condition, often with a focus on style and language. General fiction, on the other hand, prioritizes entertainment and plot, frequently focusing on established genres like romance, mystery, or science fiction. Maybe I do kind of understand it, whereas like it's saying literary fiction is focused on style and language, so maybe that's like the prose and like the style of writing, kind of like more of like a beautiful writing style, but also focusing on complex themes and characters. So I have 3 books here that I chose that are not romance, but they may have a subplot of romance. I'm not 100% sure yet. Obviously, we'll find out after I read them. And I looked them up as well to see if they are actually under that literary fiction category or genre. And one of them is, however, the other 2 I'm not really finding a clear-cut answer. So the 3 books that I picked up for this video are these 3 books, and that is The Wedding People by Alison Espach, Honey by Isabel Bonta, and also Margot's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe. And these are books that I picked up in my last haul that you saw in one of my more recent hauls, and I've been wanting to read these because they sound super interesting. Like the plot lines of these are actually very interesting. Margot's Got Money Troubles essentially is supposed to follow this girl who I think starts an OnlyFans account because she has an unplanned pregnancy and she's struggling financially. So she essentially kind of like tries to make it work by starting a OnlyFans account. And Honey is supposed to be kind of like a coming of age story of like a young pop star. So that sounds super interesting because I love kind of like musicians or like stories about music and just generally like people who have a passion for something and like their story. So this one I'm really excited about. And then finally, The Wedding People. This one I picked up because I've been seeing everybody reading this book and like obsessing over it and like loving it so much. But I'm going in completely blind because I don't really know anything about this book. So I think this is the one I want to start with because it's the one I'm most excited about. So let's go ahead and get started with this book, and I will check in with you when I have my first update. Okay, so I'm a few pages in. I'm on page 89. There's no chapter titles here, but it is divided by like days of the week. So we started on Tuesday and now we're on Wednesday. And this book essentially follows the main character, Phoebe. And Phoebe is going through a divorce, or she's just finalized her divorce. And her husband had been wanting to have a baby, but it wasn't working out for them. Like they weren't able to get pregnant. And then her husband ended up like cheating on her and leaving her to start his own family. So essentially they got divorced and now Phoebe is alone. And she also doesn't have a lot of family. She doesn't have any friends really. And she feels really down and depressed and kind of like into dumps because she doesn't really have anything to live for. So she has decided that she doesn't in fact have anything to live for and she wants to end it all. They've always been really careful with money, but she decides that this time, since it's like basically her last week or however much time she has left, she's going to do something a little bit frivolous with her money, and she books this expensive hotel where she is planning on committing the deed. So she goes and books this hotel. She arrives at the hotel, and on the day that she arrives, there's like this huge crowd of people there, and she realizes that there's a huge wedding happening that week. And on her way up to her room in the elevator, she actually runs into the bride, and they start talking a little bit because the bride is like, well, who are you and like why are you at this hotel, because this entire hotel has been like booked up solid with everybody who's here for the wedding, like all the wedding people. And so she decides to just tell her the truth. She decides to tell her exactly why she's there and what she's planning on doing, and Delilah, who's the bride, freaks out about that, try to talk her out of it because her wedding is so big and so expensive. It's like apparently $1 million or something, and Phoebe committing the thing that she wants to commit during her wedding week will kind of ruin her very expensive $1 million wedding, okay? So that would put a huge damper on things for her, and she's just kind of like, dude, you cannot do this week. You cannot do this during my wedding. This would like ruin my entire wedding, okay? But they kind of have like this funny, sad conversation, kind of like a little bit funny, a little bit sad conversation where they open up to each other a little bit, where she says that she doesn't normally like talk to people like that or be like as honest, but like Phoebe is like extremely honest with Lila because, you know, she really doesn't feel like she has anything left to live for, so like why not just be honest with people? It's not like a friendship or anything like that. She just thinks she's never going to see her again. So that looks like it's going to be an interesting aspect to this. This book immediately grabbed my attention from like the first page. It draws you in so quickly. I'm liking the writing. I'm liking the characters so far, and I'm really interested to know like what's going to happen in this book because so far this is just the setup. It's only been one day, and I think this takes place throughout the entire wedding week. It's really compelling. Like, I have not read a story like this before, so I'm very interested and intrigued by this book, and I'm just gonna keep reading because I'm like really pulled into it right now. So that's my first update on page 89, I think I said, on Wednesday. And this day is labeled sailing. So I think they're gonna go sailing next, and we'll see what happens there. So that's it for now. I'll check in with you in a little bit. It's a little bit later in the day now, and I actually read quite a bit today. So we're on Friday now, and that's page 257, and a lot has happened. But essentially what happens, Layla comes to check on her the next day just to see, because she hasn't heard anything from the hotel, if it went down, if it didn't go down, like what happened. So this is like a very serious topic, obviously, but it's actually done in a little bit of a humorous way. They're treating this like a lot more lighthearted than I would have imagined. It's just like a weird situation because like Lila is kind of self-absorbed a lot and like cares about herself and her expensive wedding and everything like that, but she's also caring about Phoebe at the same time, and like they're like developing this weird friendship between them because of like the honesty. They just talk to each other so freely in a way that they've never done with anybody else, really. Not even like their husbands, not their fiance, like not their families, not their best friends, like nothing like that. They just now have this connection together that they've never had with anybody else, and it's just like crazy. So much so where Lila feels like she knows Phoebe so much more than anybody else that's actually attending the wedding. And then from Phoebe's perspective, she just kind of is seeing and learning how like other people's expectations and needs and wants for her like dictate her life, and she's just kind of like over that now. She just has this like breath of honesty about her now that she just like decides that she no longer cares about what other people think or want or what their expectations of her are and things like that. It's like this whole self-awareness thing, and she just starts becoming like this other person, like her true self, and that is like what draws other people around her, like draws them in, because she has like this different energy about her where she's just like truly honest and like actually being herself, and people see that as genuine. Even if they don't like actually comprehend that that's what's happening, they like feel the energy of her being her true self, so they're like attracted to her a lot more. Okay, so those are kind of like the things that are happening right now. I think I'm gonna finish this book today. I don't have that much left. I only have like a third of the book left, I think. Maybe a little bit less than a third of the book left. I don't really know where it stands. It's definitely a high 4 so far, maybe even a 5-star. I don't really know. We'll see how the ending goes, but I am really loving this book so far. It is so different than anything I've read. So that's my update for now, and I will check in with you again probably when I'm done with this book. Good morning. So I finished The Wedding People last night, and this book was amazing. I absolutely loved this book. I'm actually rating this book 5 stars. This was a definite 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. All the characters in this book are so interesting. Like, nobody is perfect. Everybody has flaws. Everybody's going through something. So much is going on with them, but they're written so well, and the writing is so good that you just like feel for them and you understand them. And even though they're being selfish or they're acting wrong or like they're just like doing crazy things, you are so pulled into the story that like you just feel so much for these characters. And I love this kind of writing. It's written in third person, which actually normally I don't really care for third person writing, but in this case I feel like it actually made this book better. So I did really love the writing in this book. There were a few moments where it did kind of slow down maybe like a little bit, but overall it moved really fast in general. So it was kind of like a fast read. I finished it in one day, but I did have all day to read. So like I didn't really have anything to do yesterday, so I did finish it all in one day, but it did read really fast because the writing is very fast paced. It's not like super descriptive or super lyrical or anything like that. It's mostly just focused on the characters and like what they're doing and what's going on. And it's kind of like suspenseful almost a little bit. Like, it's not a thriller. It doesn't read like a thriller, but it's definitely gripping and suspenseful. So that does make it like a very fast moving book in my opinion. I don't know what else to say about it. I just really love this book. I love these kinds of like existential kind of like meaning of life books. I think they're so interesting and just make you look at life in a different way. The only other book I could think of that kind of touched on these topics was Love of My Afterlife by Christy Greenwood, which I loved that book. And this is another one that I can add to my list or like my roster of like books that touch on those topics. So I really love this book. Highly recommend it. It was a definite 5-star, and I'm so happy I picked this up because now this for sure is one of my favorite reads of the year. So I'm super happy with that. So I think for the next book that I'm going to pick up for this vlog is Margot's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe, and this one follows the main character. Who is the main character? Margot. Margot. Okay, so this one follows Margot, and we'll see what she's up to. And this looks like a very short read. It's under 300 pages, just under 300 pages. So we'll see what this is about, and we'll see what Margot's up to, and I will check in with you when I have my first update for this one. Okay, so quick update on this book. I'm on chapter 11, which is page 112, I believe, and just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on the setup of this book. So this follows the main character, Margot, who accidentally gets pregnant by her professor in college at the age of 19. And he disappears. He does not want anything to do with it. He's already married and he's got a family of his own, and he just kind of like literally ghosts her completely. And then she gets a call from his mother and like his mother's lawyers or his lawyers or whatever, where they just try to kind of like pay her off for her to just keep it quiet and not tell anybody about it. Okay. She has really terrible roommates. Her mom is also like kind of like a terrible character because she's just kind of like very selfish, cares only about herself. She doesn't come and help her at all in any way, and that was surprising to me because her mom was also a single mom, and then also her roommates are not very nice either. So it's just a bad situation for her in general. And then also other bad things happen to her. She like loses her job because she can't find childcare because she can't afford it, and you know, like different kinds of things like that are happening to her. So she's like really down on her luck. Her dad is also kind of like not in the picture picture at first either, but he shows up a little bit later, and she wasn't able to get a hold of him at first, but he finds out, he finally gets her messages, and he comes to help her out. And just kind of like by chance, he gives her this idea like how she can make money, but she decides to take it seriously and like just kind of like runs with it. Okay, it's interesting so far. It's not my favorite book or anything like that. I don't think this is going to be a 5-star, but I'm not sure. Like, it might turn around. Like, it is interesting enough. Like, it's definitely keeping my attention. It's moving quickly. I like the dad so far. Like, I like that he came back and is making up for his previous mistakes. I like him like with the baby and like bonding with the baby and stuff like that. Like, that's kind of cute. I do not like her mom. I do not like her roommates. I do not like the father of the baby. None of the other characters are likable in any way whatsoever. So I'm feeling really bad for her. Like, she's doing what she needs to do though. So obviously I applaud her for doing what she needs to do. But honestly, like, these characters, like these side characters, not good people at all. So they're definitely making me angry, but I do feel really bad for Margot, and I'm glad that her dad is kind of like coming back into the picture a little bit to help her out. But overall, this book is keeping my attention. I'm very interested in like what's going to happen and how she's going to make this work, and I like the writing so far, and it's moving really quickly. So I will keep reading and give you guys another update when I'm further into the book. Good morning. So I finished this book. This is my final update for this book. I actually had no other updates when I was reading this, so this is the final update for Margot's Got Money Troubles. This was okay. It was interesting. It actually did slow down quite a bit in the middle, and I had a hard time like picking it back up, but it was still like reading quickly enough, and enough like outrageous things were happening in this book that it did mostly keep my attention. Like, for the most part, it did keep my attention, but it did slow down a little bit like in the middle. So Margot does have like a really hard go at it, you know, like she's got a really hard go of it. She's dealing with a lot of things are happening to her where it's almost kind of like very unrealistic. Like, she's so unlucky in certain aspects of her life where it just seems so unrealistic, but then she's also like very lucky in other aspects of her life, which also seems unrealistic. So I don't really know. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. It had enough dynamic characters to keep my attention, and some characters I really hated, some characters I actually liked, like especially Margot. Like, I really felt bad for her and I tried to understand her. She does make some stupid decisions in this book. She does make some choices that like I personally wouldn't make, but no negative judgment on her because she is having like a really rough go of it, and like, how do you act like in these situations, and what really is the best decision in these situations, like when you're going through something so life-changing, you know? So no negative judgment on her. She's doing the best she can, and I was really rooting for her, and I really wanted things to work out for her. But in the story itself, like, it just seemed like there were so many unrealistic, like, lucky things that happened to her, and so many unrealistic, unlucky things that happened to her. I liked it enough to continue reading it and to finish this book because it was really quick, and it was an interesting and entertaining read overall. And there is like a tiny bit of romance in this, which did surprise me because I didn't expect any romance in this whatsoever. So that was interesting, but I would not say that this is funny or bantery or anything like that. I think I'm going to rate this one 3 stars because I liked it. I had a good time reading this. It was interesting. It kept my attention, but some aspects of the plot and some of the characters, they weren't hitting for me in general. So that's Margot's Got Money Trouble, and that's this book done. The next book I'm going to pick up today is Honey by Isabel Bonta, and that's this book here, and this is the one that follows the pop star and like her coming of age story. So let's get started with this one, and I will check in with you guys when I have my first update. Okay, so this book doesn't have like chapter numbers or anything, but I'm on page 101, which is about this far into the book. So just wanted to give you an update. This book follows the main character, Amber, who is 12 years old, and she is performing in like her school's talent show, and she's singing, and she gets discovered by like this talent scout or agent or something like that. So this agent reaches out to her mom and says that they want to like have her audition for them so that they could represent her as an agency, and because they, you know, believe that she's very, very talented in her singing. And Amber really loves singing. She really wants to be a singer. That's all she ever wants to do. And it's kind of amazing because I like really admire her for knowing what she wants to do at such a young age. And so she gets picked up by this agency and they do represent her. And so her mom ends up taking her to all these auditions, and she's also auditioning for like commercials and stuff, not just singing or anything like that. Mostly like commercials, I think it was. But she's having a hard time landing anything. Nothing's really working out. It's getting expensive. So her mom wants her to quit, and so she does. Okay. But Amber knows that she wants to be a singer. So then she turns 16 and she decides that she wants to give it another go. And she reaches out to that same agent. Her family life is not great. Her father left when she was a baby. Her mom is kind of like an alcoholic. Her brother is like uncaring, like he's not really part of the picture very much, at least not yet. And so she's kind of like doing it on her own, and she's trying to make it work, and she's very driven, and I do admire her drive. Right now it's just kind of following her friendships, like the friendships that she's making along the way with other people who are in the industry as well, and just kind of like stuff like that. This book is a little bit hypersexualized, I think. Even like Amber herself and her thoughts and like how she kind of like hypersexualizes herself. It's a little bit weird, but like also the industry itself and like the people working in the industry, like in the music industry, like basically hypersexualize everybody. And it's like a lot of that happening right now. And it's a little bit weird. They mostly focus on money and making money and stuff like that, obviously, but it's not like purely evil. Like the industry's not purely evil yet. Like nobody's really doing anything to like hurt her. So far, like none of that is happening yet, like this far into the book. But we will see how it goes, because that might change like once we get further into the book. She's got a friend in the industry who's also a singer, and there's a little bit of drama. You know, there was a point where she was also kind of like auditioning to be part of like a girl group, like a girl singing group. And then there's also like a boy band, and there's a guy in the boy band that's kind of like the love interest so far. I definitely didn't expect this to have romance in it, but she does have a crush on him, and they do kind of have like an ongoing friendship. So we'll see if that turns into anything, but I definitely did not expect this book to have any romance in it. So we'll see how that goes. It's interesting enough so far. I do like reading about her and like her story, and I really do admire her like drive and like the fact that she knows who she wants to be and what she wants to do for the rest of her life. And she knows she wants to be famous, and she knows she's willing to do anything it takes to get herself there. So I do really admire that about her. So I will keep reading and probably check in with you tomorrow when I have more thoughts. Good morning. So I finished this book last night, and I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed in this one. I was expecting a lot more from this book, and maybe just like different, something different. So I expected to see like the highs and the lows, right? So she's a pop star singer. She's going through like making it in the industry basically from a young age. And I had anticipated to see like her going through like some hardships and then, you know, kind of like overcoming that and then coming out on top. And what we got were like all the hardships and like the negative aspects of like that whole journey for her. But it felt like the positive aspects never really came. It just felt like the book was missing all the highs. Like it would build up to a moment and there'd be a hardship, and then like, you know, you would see like her overcoming it, but then you would expect to see the high and like the payoff of that. But then like the chapter would fade to black basically. Like there would be a gap in the writing and then we'd start with a new moment. So I just felt a little bit like it wasn't a really good ebb and flow. Like it was just leading up to something, going through the negative brief aspects of what she was going through, and then it would fade to black before we would get any payoff in the story. I really liked the idea of this story because it was kind of giving the favorites a little bit with like the drama and like the media gossip and like scandals and things like that, you know, and like somebody having like a very clear goal in mind and like working really, really hard to make that goal happen. So like the plot and the concept of it was really, really good. However, the writing just didn't capture that very well in my opinion. And it just kind of felt incomplete, I think, a little bit. I wanted to read more about her being on stage and like singing and like feeling all those feelings that she would be feeling, like the reason why she's doing it all, but we didn't really get that. There was actually only one scene like that, I think, towards the very, very end of the book, and it did not accomplish what it was setting out to accomplish because it wasn't like fully like fleshed out. It was just kind of like you just get a little bit of it like in the background, you know what I mean? Like it just wasn't fleshed out. It wasn't giving those feelings of like this is all worth it now, and it felt a little bit lackluster. Also, there was just like a whole chunk of this book where like basically nothing was going on and nothing's happening. We're just basically following the main character as she's just navigating her relationship with some of the other pop stars. And it's just altogether kind of lackluster and not much happens. I don't know if I felt bored per se. I don't want to say I felt bored in this one because it was like on the cusp of being like relatively interesting. It didn't have that payoff, and I felt a little bit disappointed. I would have liked to see more of Axel in this book. He got very little page time towards the end, but I would have really liked to see more of him and like her relationship with him. I did really like her relationship with Gwen, however. I liked Gwen. I think Gwen was probably my favorite character in this entire book, and she's like the other pop star who's like technically her friend. She's really the only character that I really, really liked. I did feel like I liked Amber enough, but I still didn't really connect with her on an emotional level or like on any deeper level really whatsoever when it comes to the story. It just overall didn't make me feel much. The story had really good potential, but the execution just wasn't there, unfortunately. So I ended up rating this one 2.5 stars and rounded up to 3 stars on Goodreads because I wasn't bored while reading this. Like I was still interested in the story. I just really wanted more. I wanted more of those like payoff moments, but I really liked the idea of the story, the concept. The writing was relatively straightforward. It was easily digestible. It wasn't anything crazy, and the characters were just okay. So 2.5 stars for Honey, and that completes this reading vlog. These are the 3 books we read in this vlog. Really quick recap of the other 2 that I read. First off was The Wedding People, which I absolutely loved. This was so different than anything I read before, and I just loved all the characters in this book, and like the concept and like everything that was going on in here was so interesting and like well done. This was a 5-star read, and it's definitely one of my top reads of the year. And then the other book that I read in this vlog was Margot's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe, and this one was really interesting because Margot was going through a lot of stuff in her life, and she was very unlucky in some areas of her life and very lucky in other areas of her life, but she overcame those hardships and she did it in a very interesting way. You know, she did what she had to do, and even though life wasn't fair, she kind of like overcame everything, and I really enjoyed this one. It was a little bit slow in the middle, but the concept of this was interesting and the writing was good, so I ended up rating this one 3 stars. So I'm really happy with everything that we read in this vlog because this is not a genre that I typically read very often. So having a 5-star come out of this and finding a top read of the year is just awesome. So I'm super happy about that, and it was totally worth it stepping out of my comfort zone and reading stuff that doesn't really have a lot of romance in it because I really felt like it would not keep my attention. Like I would lose interest in those books, but I haven't. So that's a success in my book, and that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know down below if you've read any of these and what your thoughts were on these books, and definitely recommend reading The Wedding People if you share similar taste to mine. I think you'll definitely enjoy that one. And yeah, if you've already read it, let me know your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and all my links are down below as always. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.